Good morning. I'm Gord Long with the Financial Repression Authority. It's my pleasure to have back with us again Ty Andros. Ty is very well known for his newsletter Tidbits, a noted Austrian economist and investor using the Austrian school, and now the Chief Investment Officer at the Sanctuary Fund. Welcome back, Ty.
Thanks for having me, Gord. It's good to be back.
It's always a pleasure. Ty, some of our listeners, and we have so many new ones, may not be familiar with your background. Could you tell them the status of Tidbits and something on what the Sanctuary Fund is?
Well, Tidbits has been on hold because I've been really going through quite a convulsion in my house. I got Dodd-Franked, and basically my little uh, niche in the world was regulated out of existence. And so I've been, like a cat trying to
This
land
is
on my
Ty.
feet.
Ty, is you when you were doing you were a commodity trading advisor, right?
That's right. I was a manager of managers, and that really got Dodd-Franked. I mean, it's just another symptom of crony capitalism. And but luckily, I've been working on other projects for quite a bit of time, and I've had a wonderful man and private equity group pick up a project that I'd been working on for 10 years, which you're aware of, and it's applied Austrian economics during I'll call it the greatest financial disaster in history, the greatest insolvency in history, and how to take what's about to unfold and turn it into, a picnic. And it won't be a picnic, but let's just call it the greatest opportunity in history.
Sounds exciting, Ty. In fact, I know enough to know that it truly is something, but it's significant. But Ty, we're here to talk about the Austrian School of Economics, and you brought some just great slides to kind of net it out for those that may not be familiar and with it, and most importantly, how to use it today in this environment. Could you explain what the Austrian school is and what it means to you, and then take us through some of these slides?
Sure. Well, the Austrian school is really three major components. And sound money and private property, which I look at as the same thing, free market capitalism, not crony capitalism, and human behavior. And what the cycle that we're going through right now, Gord, is, happened thousands of times in history. No, I'm sorry, hundreds of times in history. But it never has turned out the same. And it's also coincided with the rise and fall of empire. And it's humans forgetting the past and repeating the mistakes, and then people who let their greed run away from them, and we'll call them public serpents and banksters at this point, um, not being able to control their greed, and as their policies destroy their own economies, they just have to confiscate more and more to cover up their moral and physical insolvency. And nowhere does it start better than with sound money. If you don't have sound money, you really don't have any protection against the government. They can confiscate your money one way or the other, and they've been doing it now since Bretton Woods in 1971, at an accelerated pace, and basically we're all serfs in society now. The money that we hold in the bank is just a worthless junk bond debt, redeemable in nothing. They have now become the mafia, and I mean they're just skimming and transferring all the property themselves through one device or another. And that's why we're seeing the rise of the populism, because those people have been robbed and left with nothing. But they don't understand it, and they don't know why, and they can't see it. And so it's
Ty,
very
Ty,
important.
Ty, could you explain what you mean by sound money, and for that matter, what money is? Maybe that would help our listeners.
Well, money, has certain functions. And it's a medium of exchange, a store of value, a measure of value, a standard of value, no one else's liability, and moves purchasing power through time and space. And if it doesn't have all those things, you're not holding money. And in 1971, up to that point, we had all of those things in place. I mean, it was still being debased, but they couldn't run and gallop away like they have now. And what they left in our place was a medium of exchange, a promise to pay, also known as an IOU, and it's an IOU of fiscally and morally bankrupt politicians and banks. It's redeemable in nothing, and it's worth no more than the paper it's printed on.
And that is what fiat currencies are, basically. And
That's
that's what we have today. Are pretty
that's
well
all we
broken.
have today, other than gold and silver, and so there is still one freely traded money out there. And I'll just throw in a kicker, in that I will guarantee no, I can't guarantee it, but I will say, in my opinion, the gold and silver bear market is over, and you can just start accumulating right now, because as people flee fake money and confiscation, they're going to want to go to some place where it can't be confiscated, and that's gold and silver.
So this leads to really a better understanding of what market capitalism is and the actual process of wealth creation, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, capitalism has become an epithet, and it's because people don't know what capitalism is, except for when they go to Walmart. And of course, that's more for less. And for giving you more for less, you gather up people's common sense. They're going to go and buy the best for their families. Okay, I mean, it's just transformed the lives of millions of people who live near the poverty level. And I got to tell you that I don't go to regular grocery stores. I go to Walmart to shop. I go to BJ's. I go to Costco. I mean, it's common sense. And it's really very virtuous, because what better gift can you give to a consumer than the most for his money? And not only on top of that, it's the most efficient allocation of scarce resources, which is what they're trying to repeal. Okay, scarcity is what they're trying to repeal with a printing press. So really, if you get a better car for the smaller amount of money, or you get more health care for a smaller money, government is the antithesis of that. Okay, government is more for less, and then skimming along the way. Okay,
So just make sure I understand, Ty. So, capitalism is the whole process of capitalism is about giving you more for less.
and
And
being rewarded for it. And two people are rewarded. Three groups of people are rewarded. The consumer, because he's able to give his family a better life. The company that did it becomes a big success, because it's just common sense to pick a better quality and more of something for less money. And the employees, who are in a company that's thriving and growing. Okay, so the workers aren't cheated, the consumers aren't cheated, the people that put up the capital for the create the company are doing something virtuous, because they risked money to be able to, I'll call it, dethrone crony capitalism. And of course, crony capitalism has outlawed capitalism. And
so the flip of capitalism then is where you get less for more because of larger government, more government regulations, crony capitalism, the strangulation of the investment process of wealth creation. That is capitalism.
it's cannibalism. It's socialism. Socialism eats everything. Real wealth and income creation are in free fall. Okay, there will be no recovery. The confiscation of wealth is also known as runaway regulations, runaway debt creation, more taxes, and currency debasement.
Boy,
And
you sound like you're
and
reading right the front page of the newspaper every day. That's what we've got in full flight right now, isn't it?
it's pure confiscation. It's pure slavery. It's pure cannibalism. It's eating the golden goose. Okay, it's the people that aren't self-reliant and don't produce anything eating those that do. And back in the 1860s, we got rid of slavery, and slavery to me was taking the fruits of somebody's labor at the point of a gun. Well, now that's called fairness. And so we have slavery coming from, I'll call it, uninformed voters. I mean, these people are absolutely supporting the people that are destroying their futures. And of course, the millennials are on the front end edge of that. And So we really got some bad things going.
Ty,
Okay.
is it fair to use the expression we're turning our society into debt serfs? It's this new form of slavery you're suggesting.
Yeah, it's already happened. Okay, it's already happened. Private property. No one owns their home. It's literally held in a database, and it's not in your home. If they lose the record, you don't own your stocks. Nobody owns their stocks in their name. If you actually look at your banking agreement, you don't have title to your money. The bank's got title to your money before you do. Okay, they just slowly but surely have removed everything. They don't let you hold money. They don't let you hold money because they can't steal from it. Okay, they've outlawed real money, and they did that on purpose. I mean, these people are very, very nasty people. Okay, and we're basically
Ty, sorry to interrupt you again. So really, what it's that old expression: gold is the currency of kings, silver is the currency of merchants, and debt is the currency of slaves.
Correct.
That's what, and so this migration that we've had, and the Austrian school is about common sense and behavior. This behavioral shift, I won't say there's a conspiracy, but this behavioral shift in our society, or lack of understanding of what sound money is, because once you move from sound money, you put yourself on this path unknowingly.
they could never have done this in the early 1900s. There would have been riots, but they have absolutely made sure that they have moved you into a matrix of which you cannot escape unless you really go do the homework. And of course, that's what set me off on everything that I've been doing over the last 15 years. I had to figure out what was going on. But we're basically in a currency and financial extinction event. And I'd just like to
Could
read.
you explain what you mean by a currency extinction event, Ty?
Well, it's when we all fall into insolvency. Okay, it's unreserved lending, which is what we have. Okay, it's no actuarial, no underwriting. Okay, it used to be when you borrowed money, they did a careful analysis to see if it was self-liquidating debt. Now it's just put on the backs of our children, so we eat it, but we don't really kind of understand the implications. I typically don't like to read from the slides, Gord, but I'd like to read the quote from von Mises. And there's no means of avoiding the final collapse of a boom brought about by credit expansion. The alternative is whether the crisis should come sooner as a result of a voluntary abandonment of further credit expansion, or later as a final and total catastrophe of the system involved. We're in the latter. Catastrophe looms. All fiat currency and credit-based financial system die in waves of insolvency, and this will be no different until the people wake up. And it's how capitalism is undermined. I mean, GDP, Gord, as you know, because you're very well informed, is nothing of the sort. It's debt masquerading as GDP. It's spending the future wealth rather than creating future wealth for proper allocations to productive enterprises. And this is another. There's three key statements that I've got in this, which I do want to read because they're so important. Because they've bastardized Keynesianism as well. I mean, it's a pale shadow of what Keynes actually said. But anyway, here's John Maynard Keynes. I mean, basically the father of the economic systems we're running. The best way to destroy the capitalist system is to debauch the currency. There is no subtler, surer means of overturning the existing basis of society than to debauch the currency. By the continuing process of inflation, governments can confiscate, secretly and unobserved, an important part of the wealth of their citizens. There's no subtler, no surer means of overturning the existing basis of society than to debauch the currency. The process engages all of the hidden forces of economic law on the side of destruction, and does it in a manner which not one man in a million is able to diagnose. And of course, we're pretty far along. Okay, this really started in 1913, but it became unbridled in 1971. And we have nothing. We're just a bunch of debt slaves living in an illusion until we wake up. Nixon changed us from a reserve-backed system where the dollar was semi-redeemable in gold and silver to one that has no backing. Well, it was the greatest heist in history. It was the greatest transfer of wealth from the public to banksters, and he did that so that he didn't have to operate in a prudent manner. A prudent manner means that we have to pass laws and have taxes that allow people to have the incentives to get up in the morning and have the ability to do that capitalism we talked about. But when you have bad laws and bad regulations, the economy will either collapse or they have to print the money to fill the hole. And they chose the latter. Okay? So, as these quotes from Voltaire and Copernicus and J.P. Morgan, those are all bottom line statements. And these are Voltaire, what was several hundred years ago. Copernicus, 600 years ago. J.P. Morgan, 100 years ago. These are timeless things that they're history repeating. Okay.
Hi. So what happened was, if I gather that, so Vietnam War we couldn't pay for. It was the first war we didn't go to the people for bonds. We just put it on our credit card. We had Johnson's Great Society. And all of this was, I'll use the word, putting it on our credit card. We couldn't afford it, and the only way out was really to default on our debt or to move from away to a fiat currency. And ever since then, the debt has exploded because what we have is, and you said earlier, debt is no longer self-liquidating. It's not even done that way. It's just rolled over. So it's
rolled over, and
it gets bigger and bigger and consumes more and more of the free capital that is being generated, to the point where there's not enough capital being created in the form of going into savings to reinvest, and eventually you strangle yourself. It's like a farmer eating his seed corn at the granary, and eventually doesn't have enough to plant the fields. Is that a right scenario?
We ate the seed corn.
Yeah. There's none in the granary anymore.
There's nothing there. And when I've got some quotes here, and it's very apropos, and from Thomas Jefferson. And one is, I believe the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Already they've raised up moneyed aristocracy that has set the government at defiance. The issuing power of money should be taken away from banks and restored to the people to whom it belongs. Paper is poverty. It is the only ghost of money. It's not money itself. And, we're there. Okay. He's also got one about banks, which I didn't include in here for some reason, but it's an important thing about the booms and busts. And he wrote a constitution that kept those people, and these are the Rothschilds and the Warburgs and the 4th century old banking families. He put the rules of the road in there in the Constitution, but they've been disemboweled from it. And you can just look at Abraham Lincoln or Kennedy or McKinley. I would posit that even though they look like cranks that did it, I would say that those are those big banking families, and when they wanted to, be constitutional again, they were just liquidated. And Kennedy was taking the central bank back and taking the issuance of note and creating silver-backed money, and 90 days later he was dead. Okay, and I that's a conspiracy history. We'll never know because, everything is so covered up now. I don't think, the government is incapable of telling the truth. They're just going to tell the truth for, how they want us to perceive it. Okay,
so Ty, a lot of this is, history has been very clear what will evolve and what will happen when you move away from sound money, and that's exactly what's happened. Whether it's a plan or not, it's just natural human behavior. We reach this stage. Now we're at this stage, and this is the reality. We see it every night in the press. What do we do about it as investors? What do we do about it to make good investment decisions? And I know for a fact that you're a big proponent of something called the indirect exchange, and some very leading people understand the indirect exchange that most people aren't well aware of.
Well, the indirect exchange is how you go through these periods and have the most success. And the greatest applied Austrian economist in the world is none other than Warren Buffett.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to. I don't explain.
And
Could you explain that? I don't think most people fully understand what you just said.
Well, so much of I'll call it the financialization of the economy is an illusion because it's not the real things going up. It's the paper that they're priced in losing its purchasing power. So it's like a bobber. Okay, so what he does is he sells paper, which is always, that means his liabilities are being debased by central bank printing presses and credit creation. So say he writes an insurance policy for somebody for $10 million and he has a liability of $10 million. Well, if he did that in 2000, that liability in $2,000 may be, $5 million. And at the same time, he took that money and he bought the Burlington Northern Railroad, okay, which is something that will just reprice to reflect the lower purchasing power of what it's denominated in. And it's a basic. If we're in a depression or a boom, it doesn't matter. The railroads are going to run. Okay, so he is paying that. And so I would say half of his great track record is just inflation that, isn't really properly disclosed. Okay, and it's as simple as that. But he's been doing it since 1971. Okay, that's really when Berkshire Hathaway really, it was late 60s, but Berkshire Hathaway really was born right then. And he's been selling paper and buying real things that cash flow ever since and working it. And, like I said, half of his track record's real, half of it's just the illusion that we all live in.
So sell paper claims that are going to devalue and buy assets that will appreciate and are real stores of value because they will free cash flow in new pricing power.
That's right. Just look.
But then that's what the indirect exchange is.
That is how you go through a currency and financial extinction event. Okay, exchanging something of uncertain value, fiat money, for something of certain value, real wealth that cash flows. That is the indirect exchange in one sentence. And you can do it with gold. You can do it, gold doesn't cash flow, but it's about to. Because of negative interest rates, you're paying somebody to borrow money from you. So if you are able to hold your money where you don't have to pay somebody to hold it, the gold and silver bear market is over. And as these destructive negative interest rates go deeper and deeper, and the people they're lending the money to are relying on a printing press, people will wake up, Gord. They will. Okay, they've already woken up. That's what's going on with the presidential race. That's what's going on with Donald Trump. He can't put his finger on it properly, but it's those people that know that they can't get away because of all the different types of theft that's being practiced on them. Whether it is buying a CD or holding a dollar or having a paycheck that can't grow but always gets smaller. That is the destruction of the middle class. As we're back to Keynes, debauch the society. Okay, and now everybody's caught in it. Okay, it's just we've all been turned into debt serfs. It's just like, well, you don't have enough money to support your family, but don't worry, we'll loan you enough money to get through, and you can just pay us interest on it. And the whole world's on that scheme, including every government in the world.
Ty, where does this lead? You mentioned a currency extinction event.
Well, everything's insolvent, Gord. The only insolvency they have is because they can print up a dollar bill and call it gold. And sooner or later, that is always discovered by the public. And, show me one time in the last 5,000 years it wasn't. One. Just show me one. This time is not different, Gord. I mean, the details are different. We're going to see how it unfolds. But this is the greatest insanity ever. It'll be studied and written about for centuries. It's a much bigger example of malfeasance and stupidity and failing to learn the history's lessons. It's way bigger in scale than the Great Depression because of the nature of globalization and the nature of the greed of man.
What does a individual do today, practically? Somebody being very pragmatic, saying, what do I do to protect myself, my family, and my future?
Invest in real things that cash flow, or be that where you get to hold your own stock, and anybody can hold their stock, but you have to ask for it. And you have to have real things that cash flow. I guess I would tell you that a lot of big leverage is being cleared out, and everyone tells you, about the oil industry and the natural gas industry. And do I believe that we'll see those previous heights? Yes. But that will only happen when people are abandoning the dollar and a crack-up boom starts. But in the medium term, you're going to be offered the best long-term buying opportunity in oil and natural gas since 2000, when we were at $10, since we were at $10 in the mid-'80s, but it really is actually a longer term. So you have to wait. Don't buy the insolvency. You have to wait till the insolvency's cleared out, and then you have to wade back into real things that can cash flow. You're going to see it happen in farmland. You're going to see it happen in commercial real estate. You're going to see it happen in the stock market. You're going to see it happen in bonds. And that's it. I mean, it just is that simple. It just.
Ty, as we close here, any key messages you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Pray to God. I'm sorry. I do a lot. No, they just have to do the blocking and tackling, try to stay out of debt, try to hold your money in real things that will reprice as things debase. Don't be afraid of crashes, because you want to buy things after the crash, because there's going to be a lot of them. It just is a rotating thing. That's what they do, is they inflate these bubbles. They create the false impression of wealth, and you buy them, and then they sell them to you at the highs, and then at the lows they buy them back from you with printed money. It's a boom and bust cycle that central banks have been doing for 400 years. And those central banks aren't your friends. They're not owned by the government or anything else. They're privately owned, and they're owned by the banks that you hate. Okay, and that's a whole nother session with you, Gord. But things aren't as they appear. Become educated. Don't be afraid. Okay, I mean, we're going to get through this, but we're going to have quite a forest fire so that things can start growing again.
Yeah, you need a market clearing event so that you can get repricing back in, so you can wash out the malinvestment, so you can price risk correctly. And the longer you go without doing these, and these are all fundamental to the Austrian school, the longer you go, the worse it gets to try and clear things, right?
Yeah, look at what Drahi just did. I mean, that is money that he's printing out of thin air, and he's offering it out at no cost. Well, if you can borrow something and not have to pay for it, what's it worth?
That's the right way of looking at it, is then what's it really worth?
It's worth nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's completely an illusion. It's just toxicity making the bust worst when it happens.
Ty, we've got to run. We got a break here. Absolute pleasure. I really appreciate your frankness. You're a very clear thinker. You see things in very simply that other people see as incredibly complex. Um, you're not publishing tidbits anymore because you're wrapped up in this.
Well, yeah, I'm going to start to actually tiptoeing back into it. And of course, you've asked me to start bringing you some stuff, and actually, I'm going to be feeding it into my database and feeding it into your stuff, and you can use it whenever you wish.
Well, thanks again, Ty. We're going to have you back. Always enjoy these conversations, and it's amazing. So a lot of things we were talking about here just now. You and I were talking about right after the financial crisis. Well, we were even talking about them before, because we saw it coming, right? So,
Gord, you and I have been working together off and on for what, almost a decade.
And as much as things change, they don't change. And the lessons of history have been very, very clear, and they're in full unfolding. And remember, Ty, we always used to end our podcasts with the same slide. And what was that expression? And we said, this is what they'll do.
Don't worry, they'll print the money.
Exactly. And what's happened 7 years after 2008? What are they doing? They're printing the money. They're going to negative interest rates.
They've printed $56 trillion. And that's just what they've disclosed. You, as well as I know, when you run the system, you don't have to disclose it all.
Exactly.
Do they? 56 trillion, that, we're all sitting around 56. That doesn't sound like too much. Well, that's 57 million. It's completely unpayable and inextinguishable. And it was put into things of consumption. It wasn't invested. That money is the future earnings of your sons and daughters flushed down the toilet. But I'm going to just say one thing. Our kids aren't going to pay it. There's going to be an uprising when they learn what the bill is.
Exactly true. Ty, got a break. We're going to have you back. Thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it.
May God bless you all.
And they will print the money. Bye.
Bye-bye.